right. I'd like to open the Wednesday, November 6th, 2019 Groveland Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. Tonight's, we have John Stokes, myself, Jason Normand, Kathleen Franson. Chris Goodwin has not joined us yet tonight. We are going to continue the meeting without him, and he can review the tapes if he doesn't make it before we get through the details of tonight. Also here, we have the town council, Amy Keswell, and our clerk, Rebecca Oldman. So on the agenda tonight, we have the continuation of application 2019-3 for 4 Sewell Street, Groveland Realty and Trust LLC, care of William Daly. Request a comprehensive permit pursuant to provisions MGL 40B 20 through 23 and 760 CMR 56 to construct 192 apartment units in 4 residential buildings, a clubhouse with related amenities such as pool and associated access ways, sidewalks, parking, utility, and stormwater infrastructure located in the industrial zone district. You want to continue the public hearing?
Yes. So we need to make a motion to
Yep.
open it, open the continued hearing. I'll make a motion to continue. Open back up the hearing, basically.
John, second. All those in favor? All right. Tonight, we are going to cover the TEC design review and traffic considerations, as well as civil. We have representatives of TEC. Do you want to review your findings?
Well, Mr. Chair, as we've done in the past with traffic, we would appreciate first to put into the record and to make a presentation to you all, and then have TEC follow up with their peer review. If that's okay with you, we'd like to proceed in that order.
Yeah, we're just expecting to do the peer review and then follow up with some of your responses, so I don't know
Well,
unless you want to
we
cover
might,
it before.
first off, educate you on the process, but I have a couple just quick comments to make. First off, as your peer review consultant will notice, that the plans are not yet 100% complete engineering plans under 40B statute, and what has been pretty much typified in most hearings is that, you know, our objective is to prove that, in fact, these systems can be fully engineered, but being that their buildings may change, the density may change, or you may impose other such modifications to the plans, those are typically done as final plans to be, you know, peer reviewed when complete if such a decision was made by this board to proceed. That there were many questions raised in previous hearings, even under our traffic engineer, about things of crossing safely at an intersection within the site, stop signs, handicap access, such things like that. So what we asked our engineer to do, and he will present, is typical examples of an intersection, of a detail for handicap ramps, and those would be obviously carried forth throughout the engineer plans at that point in time once they were to be done. I also submitted to Rebecca a response from our traffic engineer to the last of the peer review questions. That has been put into and provided to you all in your packet, or will be provided for you in packet. And it's nothing necessary we have to review tonight. And certainly, as we indicated last time, if this board feels we need to bring back the traffic engineer subsequent to the civil, we are happy to do that. A couple more things. In the peer review report, you'll notice that, again, for informational questions raised, as they've been before, regarding Nelson Sewell Street, about rights to do what we're proposing, we'd like to suggest that at the next scheduled hearing in 2 weeks, we will have counsel here and will present and share with you all the supporting documentation as to why those rights exist. We recognize that there are a question that's been raised, and as we did to Mass Housing when they asked the question, when we answered it to them, we certainly would like to be able to present it to you so you have a comfort letter regarding that. There's also been raised questions about turtles. To that end, I want to just let you know that Oxbow Associates, who is our expert and was involved in all the submission to National Heritage, will be providing to Rebecca and will be distributed a letter where he outlined what happened during that process, what was applied for, and that it gives you a sense, because I do understand the question, you know, is it relevant, or how does it have meaning? Does it have anything to do with what is actually being proposed? And so we hope that this letter will prove informational. If you or your peer review after that form, we're happy to invite Brian to the meeting and to let him and the consultant to have that discussion. Last thing is that our application to you all, again, just to remind you, is based on the fact that we would be seeking to construct a wastewater treatment facility on site. That's a state permit. We recognize that any approval or any 40B permit would be subject to that. That's a state permit process that would have to be followed. But at the same time, again, I wanted to just advise you all, we are still in discussions with the sewer department about the possibility of an extension of the sewer system that would service the manufacturer across the street and other neighborhoods along the way. I can only tell you that they asked for some information from the applicant, and Bill has provided it to them. And certainly if, you know, that discussion advances to be something at the point where we actually apply to them for that, we will, of course, advise this board. But at the moment, we still have not changing our application. But I did want to make you aware, should you hear out in there that these discussions are taking place. We think that there's a possibility of a way in which this could be beneficial to the town, so we are exploring it with the appropriate parties. That being said, I'd like to just let Brian from Millennium Engineering come up here and, yes. Is there a
So-
question?
Yeah, so we have looked at this, and we would like to hear, since we have asked TEC to do a peer review, we'd like, of the original plans, we'd like to hear what they have to say and then hear the response from your engineer. We'd like to do it seeing as how we have brought,
Okay, it's not what we did in traffic. You gave us the opportunity to present.
I understand, but
I don't-
because there's
I don't-
already comments,
I don't
let's
have-
just
I don't have
present
an
what they've
objection
come.
to that.
Yeah, right,
I don't
so
have
let's
objection to
give them what we've asked them to come to us to give us their comments on your basic plan. So I'd like to hear those first, and that gives your engineer a chance to rebut. It actually is to your benefit, so
It's
let's do it
perfectly
that.
fine. I
Just
don't need-
organizationally, I
I-
think if we jump around too much, it makes me a
You're
little crazy.
gracious to let me start here every night that we have a hearing and say my 2 cents, so I appreciate it kindly. That way I could justify the billing to my client. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Could I just interject one moment, just to tell you that I have had communication from the Water and Sewer Commission, and they would like to be present at our next meeting on the 20th to discuss their conversation and alert the board as to their comments and concerns about possible connections.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Rick Freiberg from TEC, the Town Civil Engineering Peer Review Consultant. It's my understanding that the board covered our initial traffic memo at the previous hearing. It looks like there's been a recent response to that comment, so we'll look forward to, you know, reviewing that updated material and providing an update for you at the next meeting as well on traffic-related issues. But tonight, we do have a presentation prepared to overview on the civil engineering aspects of the project. As was noted by the applicant's representative, the nature of the plans at this stage I would consider sort of like a conceptual design. As they noted, will likely be changes and tweaks to the plans as they work their way through the details of the project with the town and its process. So a lot of our comments are going to you know, sort of carry forward and as more and more details added to the project, that these are the kind of things that we're going to be looking for as that supplemental information comes forward. So just starting with our peer review letter, the first 10 comments are really about clarification and acknowledgement of the list of waivers that's been requested under the 40B project. Basically, they supply you with a list of waivers from local bylaws that they're seeking. We're just sort of acknowledging those with those first 10 comments, but also noting that any waivers requested having to do with public safety and the like, we would not be in favor of granting those waivers, right, as part of the project. So that's the first 10 comments of our letter. And then starting at comment 11, we begin to get into some of the details of the site plans. And it starts out, comment 11, which was addressed, and it sounds like this will be addressed at the next hearing as well, but having to do with the rights of access on those private right-of-ways. So we're happy to hear that there's a plan to discuss that at the next hearing. So that's comment 11. Comment 12 has to do with adding more detail onto the plans related to, typical dimensional information you usually see on a site layout plan, as well as identifying the widths of walkways and the like to ensure ADA compliance, parking space dimensions to ensure that they meet the town's requirements for that stuff, building lengths and widths just to verify the size of the buildings on the plans. And then more than that, also, typically you see materials like is it granite curbing that's proposed or some other material, utility sizes, inverts, dimensional information about that. And then providing, typically at the end of it, you'll see a set of construction details that provides the town with an understanding of when they see the line on the plan, what does it actually mean? So you see a line that says it's curb, well, is it precast curb, is it granite curb? What's the gravel look like around that? So those details will get added, I think, as we get further into the design. And we'll be looking forward to reviewing that as that information comes in. The next comment, number 13, has to do with providing snow storage locations. And again, at this conceptual level, it's just something we want to think about with space planning because there are such dramatic changes in topography on the site. Some places we observe fills as much as 40 or 45 feet or so, and other places very large cuts. So planning for snow storage and how that works on the green space, you certainly want to be planning for those with providing shelves adjacent to paved areas to provide that snow storage. The next one, again, the next couple have to do with the private right-of-way access. Number 16 is to coordinate with the fire department. There's only access to a couple sides of the buildings in most instances, usually just two. And so we wanted to confirm that that was acceptable from the fire department's perspective on that. And along with that, also determining the location of fire hydrants was acceptable. Comment 18 was talking about, this is a fairly large number of units that's proposed, and so likely there'd be a certain number of children living here, and so providing a safe access or a safe way to access a bus stop. In our minds, we had envisioned maybe something along the street where there's a wider sidewalk area, room for kids to wait for the bus along the public way or something like that. So just some provision for that as the plan gets further developed. Number 19 has to do, again, with more grading and drainage information. How big are the pipes? Which direction are they traveling in? What are the pipe materials? That kind of thing that you typically would see on a utility plan. Number 20, so a stormwater report hasn't been provided yet. I did see there was a narrative that was provided outlining that they would comply with Mass DEP stormwater management standards, but that report doesn't exist yet. And obviously there is an increase in impervious area here, so we expect a pretty substantial best management practices plan to address that increase in stormwater associated with the additional runoff that'll be generated. Number 21 has to do with identifying the limits of grading on site. Obviously, that'll be really relevant when we start to review the erosion controls that are going to be put in place. Like I mentioned before, there are some areas that have something like 40 feet of fill, and that's going to have to be brought up in lifts and lifts and lifts. And so one of the things you always look at when you see large earthwork projects like that are what does a construction erosion controls look like? Are they phased in over time as the grades begin to change? The site looks a lot different than it does today, and how does the phasing of the erosion controls match the phasing of the project? So that's why we're interested in seeing where those limits of grading are going to be. We recommend adding guardrail along Sewell. Again, that's just a very large grade change in that area, very close to it. Looks like the slope starts very close to the road, goes down something like 30, 35 feet. So we'd be looking to incorporate some form of guardrail there for vehicle protection. Number 23 has to do with dead-end parking aisles. It looks like they're going to probably discuss that tonight. I see a graphic behind me here. Maybe the incorporation of hammerhead turns or depending on spaces required for the project, sometimes you'll see almost like little mini cul-de-sacs or turnarounds, which could be multi-purpose in that, they serve as a drop-off for the building, for example, and also a way to turn around if there's no parking spaces. So we'll listen to what the response is on that. Number 24 has to do with providing a complete parking table. 25 has to do with showing all the parking spaces that are proposed on the plan. So on the current plans, you see sort of a top-down view, what you'd see from a helicopter, but it's apparent that there's probably parking underneath the buildings as well. And so getting an understanding of, what are the dimensions of that? Are there ways to turn around once you get in there and find out there's no parking spaces? That's something we'd be interested in seeing as well. Number 26 has to do with dumpster locations and access to the dumpster. Again, that's sort of probably something we'd expect to see further down the line. A lot of times in these buildings, there'll be trash rooms, for example, so there may not be exterior dumpsters, but there may be trash rooms, but showing how garbage trucks would access those areas, how the trash would be brought out, obviously is important when you have 192 apartments. There'll be quite a bit of trash that goes with it. Number 27 has to do with the signage proposed on site for vehicular access. So stop signs are probably the most common one that we'll expect to see, but possibly some do not parking signs, fire lanes, for example. You might want to have signage that depicts that. So as we get more into the details of the project, we'll expect that signage that's proposed to be more and more included in the plan. Number 28 has to do, again, with coordinating with water and sewer. It sounds like they're interested in attending the next meeting, so we'll punch to that. Number 29 is about the sewer system, and on this plan, it looked to us as if there was going to be a sewer extension proposed. We're hearing now that possibly it's going to be an on-site sewage system, so we'll again wait and kind of hear on the plan for a sewer on-site. So that concludes our comments, but generally speaking, our letter outlines and is looking for sort of the confirmation of the list of waivers that's requested. We look forward to learning more about the rights to those public ways. As the plans are further developed, there's a number of details we're going to really be zooming in on to make sure that they're what the town would expect to see in a development like this. We'll be looking with a keen eye at the stormwater report when that comes in, making sure that meets all of the stormwater management standards of Mass DEP. Reviewing the utility sizes, probably with help from town staff, to ensure that the utilities that are needed to support the project are available, things like water pressure and the like, making sure that works. And again, we'll be interested in learning more as we get further along about, because it's such a substantial amount of earthwork involved, looking at probably some kind of cut-fill analysis on the site, and also because of the large volume of earthwork, we're not sure. It appears to us there'll probably be quite a substantial fill, and what would the trucking routes look like? And are there any impacts to adjacent streets or time of day type restrictions that the town would want to pursue to make construction to the site as minimally disruptive to nearby residents as possible? I look forward to answering any questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would send to their presentation next, and then if we have any questions, can we come back to you? Is that okay?
Absolutely. Thank
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to introduce Brian Murray from Millennium Engineering, who is our civil engineer of record.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joel, for that. As Joel said, my name's Brian Murray. I serve as a project manager for Millennium on it, in the civil design role on it. Before I get going into this, I'd just like to thank Tech for their thorough review of what we've submitted so far on it, and getting it back to us in time so that we're actually able to talk, respond in writing and also talk about it tonight. So, much appreciated there on it. I think I'm gonna probably take the same tack, just kind of walk down his, the comments. If you refer to my November 5th letter in here, it might make it easy because I've included the tech comments in my response, or our response under it. So, I know, I see you're searching for one right now. And Rick, we just submitted this yesterday on it, just so you know. All right, so comment number 15, that was previously discussed by Joel on it. That'll be discussed at the next meeting. If we look at number 16, we're talking about access and egress from the site could be achieved along Nelson Street for emergency purposes. We have incorporated into the project some design revisions.
Pardon me.
Yep.
He's on the September 25th letter, so he's not on the letter that we just got from Tech.
Okay, all right, so you want me,
He's
we've had 2 letters from Tech.
So he's on 925,
Okay.
the traffic letter.
Do you want me to go to the other one first, the one that he just discussed?
Yeah, I didn't think we were gonna talk about traffic tonight.
Yeah, I
we'd
thought
follow
it
up
was
with
gonna
that
be-
on the 20th.
Within that traffic
Yeah,
letter,
let's-
there were several civil comments in it. The second section of that letter was titled, I believe, site plan comments, or, so if you look at the September, I believe, 25th letter, there was a second heading in there. You know, for review purposes, let me just go to the letter that.
Yeah, can we review the November 5th, since it's what he just went over, and then we can go back to the traffic one after?
Whatever you like on it.
So
Yeah.
the Tech one is October 30th that we would be looking at.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's the second.
Oops, sorry.
But yeah, if we do the Millennium Engineering from November 5th, which covers exactly the comments of the document he just went over, so that way we can
Yeah.
kind of keep them aligned, and then
Sure. All right, the most
go
recent-
back to the other one.
Just
if-
so you know, that's page 5 of 9 on it in the Millennium Response.
Thank you.
Yep.
That's helpful.
Okay, number 11 on it, that was previously discussed, relative to the private ways on it. Joel will be discussing that at the next hearing. Number 12, the additional information, dimensioning and such. What we've done in the handouts that we've provided, the typical details, we've included dimensions at various points within the project, such as a couple project intersections, and some of the parking areas. We've also identified the widths of the accessible aisles, sidewalks. Let's see, right-of-ways and such. So within the typical details that we've provided you, the 11 by 17s, sheets 1 through 9, we have included that. And I can use it as for instance, this 2 by 3 that I have up here right now. On it, if you look,
Hang on, we gotta mic you up. Please, that's on. You have to push the button once. so it turns green.
Oh, there we go. All right, and the 2 by 3s that we provide, they're 11 by 17s for you on it. If we look at actually 2 of 9 on it, you could, actually, let me take that back. We're going to have to go to 3 of 9 on this. As you can see within this parking lot, this is actually building number 1. Some of the questions that were asked were, dimension of the aisles, the parking list. If you see on there, we've labeled up what the dimensions are on the ADA parking spots. You can see there's a 24-foot width shown in there. That's the aisle in between parking on it. You can see there's a crosswalk up to the northern part of the site. We're showing an 8-foot crosswalk. So what we've done throughout these details is we've incorporated some of these dimensions as best we can to show to you, and also to meet the comment provided by Tech on it. So as you go through those various plans, you'll see these dimensions that are talked about. The next one is snow removal. We've basically done the same thing with these typical details. Where we've had a chance, we've shown some locations where the snow storage will be located. Typically, what we're showing you on the plans are near the buildings on it. So we've identified several areas where snow storage could occur. What will most likely take place on this, as the snow accumulates and it becomes a problem near certain intersections, we're looking to have a dump area where they can move snow from certain locations to a location where it's out of the way, away from the travelways, the parking, and the various pedestrian facilities within the project. If you look at or just to give you an idea, for the overall map, or the overall map of the site, the area that we will probably be looking to store snow will be down in this location right in here on it. That would be out of the way. It's to the east of Building 4 on it.
Do you have that plan showing your new changes? Or do you just have these?
I have all those, the typical.
No overall plan showing all the changes?
No. If we did a revised set of that, it would have been, I don't think we could have had it in time for you,
So,
for this meeting.
Going through all these, I'm just curious as to how many snow storage areas. I can't keep track. How do we know which ones are the same? So, because some of them seem to go on to.
Yes, the idea here is to show you, where typical locations of snow storage could be. Once we develop the final plans, we'll have the snow storage areas located throughout.
Final plans for the board or the final plans for the project?
Final plans for the project on it.
So we won't see them?
What we're trying to do is show you here are typical locations where the snow storage will be.
I guess I'm just confused why that can't go on an overall plan so we can see them. So for example,
Because-
I'm confused because you have snow storage here, but it seems like that snow storage goes onto this page,
Okay, and what sheet is that?
3 of 9, and then it goes on to 4 of 9. I mean, it would be good to know, have an overall plan showing where the snow storage is proposed, because we also want to know if it's close to wetlands.
Right.
So it's important for us to see everything on one plan.
Right, and as Joel mentioned up at the front of this, we're at the very beginning of the process here on it. The locations could change, roadways could changes on it. So we're trying to identify for you typical spots we would put the snow storage on it. Absolutely, in the final plans, they would all be, labeled and finalized at that point.
I guess I'm confused because I think we started in August. So we're not necessarily at the very beginning. So,
Amy, if you want, for us, for the next time, the point is that these are preliminary plans, and they are moving pieces, and he wants to provide enough detail for your engineer to do this. If the board would like us to do a schematic that would just have an overall view of where they could be, that's fine. They're likely gonna change. What we wanted to do was provide enough detail to tech so that they would know that it's feasible in those areas. If and when we get down to wetlands review for something like that, and one of those locations is an issue, we'll respond in kind. But again, we're at a preliminary plan standard under the statute.
exactly, so that's my
what we're working.
concern. My concern is that if you're only gonna give us preliminary plans, we're not gonna be able to see enough.
Well, we are being responsive to tech. We're giving preliminary plans to the extent there's concerns where you want more detail than is the standard, we're happy to oblige for that. So if the board wants us to do them, have an overall 111 by 17, which has some demarcates where they are, that's fine, they may change. So, again, the standard applicable is the preliminary plan standard. That's where we're responding directly to comments where they could be. We would expect that tech may now, in the next round, say, well, we don't like them there, or you may want to move them there, and that's fine. If you would like a separate snow storage sheet on the plan,
No,
then that's
what would
fine.
be more helpful is to see all of the things that you're presenting on one plan, rather than having 9 sheets for
Well,
us
it's
to
a
have to
big thing,
figure
and
out.
we're also cognizant of scale. So making sure that you can read the necessary detail. We're happy to, it's all on CAD, so we can produce whatever plan you want with this. If it's confusing to you, in the way it's presented, we'll present it to you in a way that's not confusing to you.
That's all. I think it's actually pretty simple. I think this plan that's on here right now, that just shows where the snow removal, I'm sorry, where the snow storage would be, I think would be helpful just as an overall plan, because it is kind of hard to sort of piece them all together. And we could just cut and paste and figure all that out, but it would be nice to have something that shows the overall.
And I've seen that, we've seen that too, where there's be a separate thing that, where all the other details are removed and we're just talking about, hey, here's your snow storage plan.
Right.
Well, we'll present it however you want. What we're trying to accomplish now is being responsive so that tech can
Right.
say, okay, have you addressed our concerns or not? And then the plans will start to gel a little bit more as we get down the stretch, post-review. So there's no intent to not provide the detail. If
No, that's-
as a result of this, you want more detail in any particular area, or tech does, then we're happy to provide it.
Okay.
So, the tension with 40B always is this preliminary plan detail. We're happy to provide more detail than is actually required under the statute, but we're also cognizant of the fact that we don't want to design and redesign and redesign and redesign. That just, with
But I
the
don't- I
version
think
control
The
there.
board doesn't want to design by conditioning either, so it would be helpful.
We're not suggesting that that is the
But
case,
that
although some
is
things
what could
are
end up
post-permit
happening.
review.
So it would be helpful if we
Well, I
had
wouldn't
these
predict the
things in front of
future.
us.
There are some things that are typically post-permit, and we've noted where that kind of detail would come post-permit, and we can talk about it. If there's something that someone wants to fix, a location of something pre-permit, we can do that too. It's not uncommon to do it both ways. There are some details that happen in the final 100% design plans that'll happen post-permit. So, but again, in this process, if there's something that you want a specific detail on that's beyond what we would normally provide at this stage for a 40B, we'll give it to you. It's not an issue.
The other thing too, as I just want to mention, is that since this plan was just, actually, this is the first time I've seen it when I sat down today, so I haven't had a really chance to
I
go
haven't either.
through anything. This was the first time I saw it. So I probably will have follow-up questions at the next meeting,
that's
once I
terrific.
actually have time to sit and go
Perfect.
through everything.
Great.
But if in the meantime, there was an overall plan that we could just sort of see, because stormwater's coming next, and that's gonna be an important thing, so it's a good way to
That's
just.
that's an easy request.
Okay, great. If we could get that maybe before the next meeting, would that be doable?
Assuming he's just really, he's already got the locations fixed, I don't see why, I mean, I'm creating work for him. but-
provide those within the next 7
Yeah.
days?
In 7 days?
Yes.
Just to be clear, I
Just
think,
one.
I don't think
Yeah.
we're just looking for the snow storage areas. I think we're looking
That's,
for an
that's the way I read it.
overall-
You're looking for a
an
full set
overall
of
plan that
revised
just
preliminary
shows
plans.
what you've changed. So so far, I've only seen snow storage that's been added, but as you continue on, there could be other things. If you could put them all on an overall plan.
I don't know what you mean, do you mean an overall plan set, Amy? I
No,
mean,
just that plan that shows, for example, that shows the 24, the lane that's 24, it shows snow storage, and then as we keep going on, we'll see.
Well, do we do that for the dimensioning too? Because they do want us to dimension the whole site on it as well, for the
Well, I
preliminary
did find it
plans?
interesting that you don't have dimensions on the buildings. That was one of the comments from Tech, I noticed. There's no dimensions on the building lengths and widths.
An oversight on our part. If you haven't seen, if they're not in there, we will provide them,
Okay,
the buildings
thank
on
you.
there.
But they also were part of the original application as the architectural footprint.
Right, we
and
submitted all the
elevations
plans,
were all
the
submitted.
architectural plans in the first set.
I think all I would like to see is that right there, the
Yeah,
bird's
I
eye
know,
view.
I get you.
One
I
sheet.
get you, no
All
problem.
of this, all on one, that's it.
Okay.
It's
so
already done, just zoom out.
No, it's not all done. Those are typical
Well,
locations
what you did
within there.
here-
Yeah.
Zoom out and make it
Yeah.
a bigger plan, so that just we could see it all on one page.
I get, and my question to you is, do you want that, we're gonna go through some other issues here too, dimensioning. Do you want that for all, dimensioning throughout all the roadways, all the sidewalks, and so on?
I think it would
Are we
be,
gonna-
I think we need it. The fire department needs it. I mean, we need to see the dimensions.
Well, I mean, we can provide it. It's just gonna take a while to get that all together on it. And, you know, if buildings changes, there's gonna have to be revisions, to those plans as well, so.
Well, what we want to, just to be clear, we want to provide what detail you need now to have the full engineering review. There are some final detail stuff, obviously, that is going to come post-permit when we go to 100% design. So we want to, whatever is helpful for you as a board, and for tech to review, we will provide now, because those are substantive issues that you have to deliberate on. If it's true final detail plans that you typically wouldn't review in the deliver phase, then those can happen later. That's the way the 40B works. So as we go, if it's detail that you want more or tech wants more, we'll provide it. If it's something that can wait till later and the engineers can agree that, yeah, that's typically in a final construction plan set, we'll do it then too. But provided that your decision will say, you gotta provide this much detail in the final stage. That's what we,
Okay.
that's what I look for too when I'm doing it on the other side in Amy's seat.
So from my chair,
Yeah.
I think what I need to see is enough information about the project to really make a good, well-educated
Right.
decision. And so if I only have vague information that I know is going to change 12 times, I just want to make sure that I understand what the changes are as they come along so that we can sort of pivot as needed.
I agree,
That's
I
all.
agree totally. So what I want to
I'm
do.
not an engineer.
No,
I-
I know. But
I-
what I want to do as we go along is not to say, well, we're going to do 100% design plans now.
I
of
know
all
it's
the
not
details.
100%,
Right.
and I've been through this process
Yeah.
before, so I know that you cannot start out with a fully engineered plan from day one.
Right.
It never happens, because it's always gonna change.
Right.
But at least, I think what feel like I'm lacking is what the applicant is saying, this is what we wanna do, not, what do you want us to do?
Oh, no.
That's what I'm getting,
I
it's
agree,
like,
and
well,
that's
what
a-
do you want?
that's
Well,
a
no,
pet
what do you
peeve
want?
of mine, too. So as we go through it, and as tech goes through it, if there's something you want more detail on in this process, rather than what the building commissioner or tech will review at the construction phase or the building permit phase, let us know, or tech can let us know, and we'll add that detail for this process. So I think, rather than just saying more detail, let's do it issue by issue. That's the way the engineers have broken it out, and they and the board can be our guide as to which items you want more detail of. And again, we're happy to provide that detail in this process, but
And
as
that's,
appropriate.
I just want to make sure that TEC has all the information that they need to make a good educated review, so that I can make a good educated decision based on all the information.
Fair.
That's all I'm trying to get to.
absolutely fair.
And so, sometimes you need more detail on certain things, like the road is important, snow storage is important, because you have a ton of stormwater there. There's just items that are gonna be hot topics that everyone's gonna be, on top of, and that's gonna be one of them. So, it's just an overview, so that we can sort of see where on the plan it'll go.
Agreed.
Like, not in the stormwater, where it needs, right. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we'll provide a plan for the snow storage.
Thank you.
On that.
But not, I'm sorry to belabor this, but not just the snow storage, you understand that, right?
For the issues that you bring up, as we go through the review on this, we'll talk about what you guys want at the next review on it, so. All right. Let's see here. Okay, number 14. Sewell Street is designated as a private way, and therefore connection to and from modification will require authority of the owner. As previously Joel mentioned, that will be discussed at the next meeting on it. Comment number 15. It's the same thing. Nelson Street, private way. Again, that'll be brought up at the next meeting. Number 16, the applicant should coordinate with the Town of Groveland Fire Department to determine if access to the proposed buildings is adequate in current emergency vehicles. We have looked at the emergency access on it. We believe the current layout of the buildings and the roadways provide the necessary turning movements for them. We have not added a hammerhead at the end of the parking. And for instance, on that would be, again, this is building number 1. This is building number 1. As you could see, access for an emergency vehicle would come in through here, through the driveway to the parking area. It would perform its services in this area. And instead of putting a hammerhead down at the bottom down here, what we've done is, we believe that the emergency vehicle can utilize the access way to the podium parking. So what they can do is if they come in here, deal with their business, and if they have to back out, they can do this and move back out of the property, instead of building another hammerhead down at the end of the project on it. So we believe that provides adequate turning movements for the emergency vehicles. If you look in the package that we provided, the other set of 11 by 17s, that shows the turning analysis. Within that package, we do show how those trucks make those turns on it. So I think that's something Tech will be reviewing as we move forward between now and the next meeting. Sure, we can do that. Yeah. Okay, number 17, applicant should coordinate with the town of Groveland Fire Department to determine the required location and quantity of fire hydrants. In one of the final comments within this set, it talks about meeting with the water, continue meeting with the water and sewer departments. At that point, we can go through with the fire department and determine the number of hydrants and their locations. I believe we've adequately put the number in the plans right now, but obviously we want the fire department to buy into those locations and sign off on them. So as part of our meeting with the fire department, we can finalize hydrant locations with them. Number 18, applicant should provide a designated school bus pickup and drop-off location, accessible pathways to it, and demonstrate that the school bus can access and leave the designated location. Our understanding is that the bus pickup is going to have to occur on Salem Street. It's not going to drive into the private development. So what we've done, I do have a board here. That would be number 1 of 9 of the typical details. This shows the blow-up of the Salem Street, Sewell Street intersection. This shows a blow-up of the Salem Street, Sewell Street intersection. What we've done in here is, based on the comments that we have, we've expanded the sidewalk, or we've extended the sidewalk into Salem Street. We've provided a crosswalk on the easterly side of the driveway to the large business across the street, as well as to the right of Sewell Street. We believe this is the better location for this crosswalk. Again, it's an 8-foot crosswalk. We'll have to put handicap ramps in on each side of that. We'll have sidewalk from the development and down Sewell Street extending to that crosswalk. And across the street, we have the handicap ramp, and we're going to expand the sidewalk area in there for a bus stop on it, so that the children have room to leave the bus, cross the crosswalk, and then walk up into the development on it. As part of that, having a crosswalk at an unsignalized location, we need to have pedestrian signing on there. And this plan shows signing just in front of the crosswalk, and as well advanced signing down the roadway. So there's 2 components at the advanced signing that is roughly 150 feet up away from the crosswalk on both locations. And then we have the yield sign where cars are supposed to stop if someone is in the crosswalk. And it's titled that way, the sign for a crosswalk on it. Those are located about 20 feet in front of the crosswalks as typically designed on it. And that's what we've shown on the plan. So there will be a stop condition at Sewell Street. We've shown a stop sign and a stop line for that.
I have a quick question about that. I know that's technically traffic, okay, and I know we sort of talked about this prior, but, and it may be in the packet that I got, so forgive me if I
Yep.
haven't read that yet.
Yep.
But, at the last meeting, they were gonna do a signal warrant analysis and submit it to TEC, last I had heard. Now, my question for TEC is, have you received that? No.
I submitted it to Rebecca, I did not submit it directly.
Submitted it to me when?
That was the traffic report that, so it-
Yesterday, okay,
Yesterday.
all right. So, but there is one, and obviously it'll be forthcoming to TEC, because I am concerned about this crosswalk, so I was wondering if there was any more information on that, but,
We did that, and not to add to that, there was another question about sightlines, that too was included in the same package.
Okay.
Because that was the same relevant question as well, of safety and visibility, and that's part of the same packet. We can discuss that in 2 weeks again, as I said before, have to bring back traffic people if in fact we need to have a further into that discussion.
okay. And does TEC, do you think that you'd have time to review that?
Oh, yeah.
And let's say before the next meeting? Okay, that would be great, because that is definitely something I'm interested in. Thank you.
I think that site distance for that crosswalk is critically important to make roads safe in that location, so we'll look at it very closely.
Yeah, I think because of the hill there, and the sight lines are very limited, so. So we're gonna talk about it at the next one. I wanted to make sure I could read the report, and TEC can review it, and, because I feel like there are maybe some different ways to handle that might work for everyone, but I want to read the reports first.
Sure.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Yep.
Thank you for answering my question.
Number 19, applicant should provide a grading and drainage plan clearly labeling the elevation of the catch basins and drainage manhole rims and inverts. Again, our response there is, once the buildings and roadways are established, we can certainly provide that information on the plans, and we'll provide them on the plans. And they'll be shown on the grading plans, the drainage plans, and any other plans that this information, utility plans that they want to show it on. We have not provided any of that information right now because we'd like to establish roadway and building locations. Obviously, the utilities are going to follow the roadways. So if there's an adjustment to that, then the utilities are just going to get adjusted. So I think once those are established, we can certainly provide all that information.
And if I could just add to that, it's a chicken and egg equation, right? So we will get them in a consolidated way and allow TEC to be able to understand the width of the aisles, the width of this, and get the geometry so that they can understand the geometry, that those are fine. When that's done, and Tech says, yeah, we agree with those are all correct, and they provide, what's needed for safety and all that, then we can convert that into then the grading and some information on the drainage, because one has to do with the other. If they came back and said, no, you should do this or that or something different, that would affect that. So it's a sort of chicken and egg. We understand the sequencing of it and that you will need that information, but we first need to sort of work through the first level, and then we can drill down to the second, if that's okay.
20 is very similar. That's the stormwater report. Obviously, that's, once all the stormwater features are designed, at that point, we can, so that is something that will be a future submittal to the board. Number 21, demarcate the limits of grading and limits of work. Again, as Rick said in his opening discussion here, some of these items happen down the road on this. We believe this is one of the items that's going to happen down the road on it, the limits of grading and the limits of work. 22, Tech recommends adding guardrail along Sewell Street. We agree with the Tech. There is a substantial slope there, and a guardrail will be provided on the plans as we move forward to the final plans. Number 23, it appears that buildings 1, 2, and 4 will be served by dead-end parking aisles. Tech recommends that parking areas be reconfigured to eliminate the dead-end parking aisles. We're moving forward with what we see for the design on that. We think it's adequate. One of the issues that Tech raised, I think it's in a following question, is the ability of cars to, in the last 2 stalls, to back out on it. What we've done different from the preliminary plans to what you see on these typical details that I've shown is we've eliminated 2 parking spots at the end. Yeah, this one does it too. If we look at 3 of 9, previously on our submittal, there was a parking space here and right here on it. We've eliminated those two spots. What this will do, this will allow this car to back up and then move forward out from the dead end. So that takes care of any turning issues at the end there. Again, with the dead end provisions, if that was related to, their comment about the dead end related to the fire safety vehicles, which I assume it probably was, we believe we can accomplish the same thing through the driveway to the podium parking on it. Applicant should, number 24, the applicant should provide a complete parking table with calculations showing the required and proposed numbers of both regular and accessible parking spaces. That will be incorporated into the final plans. We do have some information on the number of parking spaces. Let's see where it is. I'll go, let's see here. I do. Originally, I believe the number of parking spaces, I'm sorry, I apologize, my notes are here somewhere with that.
It was 393.
It was 393, we've removed not,
Down.
yeah, we removed 9 from that.
So we-
Ba- For basically the reasons that I've just discussed here by taking these 2 away on it at the 4 parking locations on it. We've included a plan for the podium parking in this submittal. It's the last plan included in the package here. It's a 2x3 plan. It shows the 40 parking spaces that are under the building, shows parking lot size, shows the travelways in there. I think it'll be sufficient for Tech to understand what the podium parking is going to provide to the project.
Are those here?
The podium parking, yeah, it's the last sheet, it's folded up, it's a 2x3 sheet.
The big sheet, okay, I haven't gotten that far yet. Okay.
Under the,
Just to follow up on the parking, I found my notes here on it. Again, previously we had 393, we now are at 384. There's 336 parking spaces, including 32 ADA spaces for the development. We've also shown 23 parking spaces for the clubhouse. That includes 2 ADA spots, and it includes 25 visitor parking spaces. Essentially, our goal is to provide about 1.75 parking spaces per unit on the site.
So if I may add, so when you look at the podium parking, just understand a couple things that obviously are not on a layout plan. It's sprinklered, so that's one. And second is, because it's enclosed space, it also requires certain exhaust fans for circulation, for carbon buildup, and all those things are provided. In addition to that, we also put, just so, not that this is relevant to tonight's discussion, but security cameras and other things to protect, therefore, obviously, residents in that area. So there's a whole lot of other things that show up in building plans, but I just thought you might like to know those as relevant to what is proposed inside a podium parking structure.
Yeah, the only thing that jumps out at me, just looking at it quickly, is you may have the same issue with your parking spaces on the end, that they have no way to back out. So let's say parking spaces number 23 and 24. Because if you have the exit here, there's only one way to enter the garage, right? So,
Is there an exit? Yeah, one exit.
yeah, so spaces 23 and 24, they're not going to be able to back out. There's no room for them to back out that I can tell. Okay.
They-
So,
Right, there is room for them to back out, it's just it won't be a one-turn movement on it. But what we can do, we'll talk to the architect about that. We do have some excess space, parking spaces within the development, and if they think it's agreeable to remove those, we can remove those 2 spaces if need be.
Okay, it just jumped out at me as I first opened it.
We've done that in other buildings, I appreciate your concern by all means, but we've done that in other places, and it's never been a problem. In parking places, they're usually assigned by number.
Unless you have somebody with a giant SUV and you can't get around anything, even in a little car like mine.
And it may be that, and it may
All
be
of
that certain
SUVs are
cars
giant now.
certain
Yeah.
vehicles are eliminated from parking under the building. There may be a requirement here.
Or it's like
Restrictions on
compact car
weekly
only or
parking.
something
Or
like
ju-
that,
Just
but,
regular passenger vehicles,
Yeah.
no pickups, no large SUVs. That could be something as we work out through the process here.
it just jumped out at me because we were just talking about it on the other one, so I just wanted to bring it up. I'll look at it more closely, but.
Okay, comment number 25, applicants should show all proposed parking spaces on the site plans. I think that's just part of the number 24 comment on it, same thing. Number 20, I'm now on page 8 of 9 of our response letter. Number 26, the applicant should provide designated locations for dumpsters and demonstrate feasible access for pickup and drop-off of dumpster. We do have a plan, and it's included in that package, and the typical details that you have for dumpster location. This is sheet 7 of 9. What the applicant... What the applicant is proposing relative to dumpsters and recyclables is, they want to go with one location on the site. Sure, yep. Which one did you describe? Yeah. It's centrally located in the development. It's going to be right here, right across from this roadway coming out here. So you can see this roadway on that typical detail on it.
Can we put that back up for 1 second?
Yep.
I'm sorry.
I wasn't gonna read this letter, but this,
So it puts it right next to, that's an abutter's property right there, right?
That's correct, yeah, right here, yeah. What we're trying to do is find a location that's centrally located within the site on it. Now, these are going to be fenced in, screened. Once we go through landscaping design on it, there could be features put in between the dumpsters and the budding property. The dumpster area itself, as you can see, it includes driveways on it. They've been designed so that the dumpster vehicles can access, pick it up, back up, and move out all off the access ways within the development. We'll show 2 of them, one for recyclables and one for trash on it. These will have compactors on them as well, to minimize the amount of trips to and from the dumpsters to remove it.
So will they be loud?
No, they're not loud. I mean, I could show you and I'll take something, but no, they're not loud. This is what we do in other projects as well, and, I will give you examples if you like of where one could go to see what a dumpster setup is like. They're very, very specific in how they're handled. Safety is our utmost concern, but there are also cameras on them, so we make sure people.
I was asking about the noise, not anything else.
So I guess so people in the front building have to take their trash all the way down and then walk all the way out to the dumpster. There's
That's
no
correct.
in-building, like, trash chutes or anything like that. It's just everyone walks out to the dumpster.
Right. It's
So-
typical in projects of this nature.
And it'd be handicap accessible,
Yes.
I assume.
And includes a concrete pad, there's a wash down floor, it's properly, when all that, but it includes all the lots of features by the time it's done to.
Could you give us the distance between the dumpster and the abutters property line?
Sure. Let's see here.
Now, am I imagining it, or wasn't the dumpster located in a different location on the, like, on the initial plans? Weren't they over by, like, the community center on the other side?
No,
We
no.
never had one shown at that
Oh,
level of
okay.
plan.
All right. For whatever reason, I thought that's where they would be, so I was a little surprised. Okay.
Okay, comment number 27. Applicant should provide adequate street signage and pavement markings such as stop signs and stop lines. As I mentioned before, on many of the details that we've included in there, we've provided signage. We've shown for the pedestrians, we've shown stop signs on it, mostly the regulatory signs on it at this point. At this point, we have not determined any speed signage that would be on the site on it. If there is, it would be in the 25 to 30 mile an hour range within the development.
I'm gonna tell you right now. it'll
You're gonna be 15?
Yeah, it'll be 15.
I was gonna say, wow.
Okay, number 28, the applicant should continue to coordinate with the town of Groveland Water and Sewer. As this was previously discussed before, we in agreement with that, we would like to have these meetings with the Water and Sewer Department. We have done some preliminary looks at the water system and the sewer system on it, and we'd like to present those to the fire officials, and as well at these meetings after we had a chance to go through to see what they would like on the plans, for hydrants as well on this, and then we can come back and present that to the board.
Could you touch on the water test, flow test, please?
Yeah, there was a flow test done at the beginning of the site, at the intersection of Sewell and Salem on it. We've actually, there's very good pressure down at the end on Salem Street. I believe the static pressure down there is 82 PSI. We have included a copy of that flow test in the back of the response to comments. We do believe that once, when we start looking at the height or the water system as it's up on the top of the site, we do believe that we're gonna have adequate pressure there for the water system on it. We believe it's gonna be in a range of probably about 1,250 gallons per minute at 20 PSI residual. But what we are gonna do, as we go, once everything, the primary components of the project are established, we will provide a full report on the water calculations that's going with it. What we'd like to do is, since we have buildings that are 5, 6 stories high, we'd like to incorporate that into the review of the water system as well, just to make sure we have adequate pressure.
And the fire department review, right?
We don't have it.
Well, we have,
4-story over floating park.
yeah, yep.
And so, and that will be part of your fire department review as well, because they are very concerned about the height of the buildings.
Yep. Okay, 29, as currently shown, the project sewer system will be routed through manholes and piping to Salem Street. As Joel mentioned before, we are taking 2 avenues of approach here. We are looking at potentially doing a sewer within the public right-of-ways and connecting to the town's municipal system, but we're also currently looking at an on-site wastewater septic or treatment system on it. This month, we're gonna be doing testing on site, we're gonna be doing soil testing. Part of that soil testing will be in the area of what we think the on-site wastewater treatment facility will be. So,
Where would you put that?
that would be located, if you look at the preliminary plans, it's shown on there, but for now, to give you an idea, it's gonna be right in this area right here.
Thank you.
And that's it for going through the comments on it. Do you want me to go back to the other comments, for the tech comments, or do we want to?
Do we have anything specific on that we want to cover, or?
What you'll find is a lot of those comments are similar to the ones that we just went through on it. So
Yeah.
I think my response to those are gonna be the same as to what you heard here before.
Well, before we move on to the next set, I would like to ask TEC if they have any further questions or follow-up questions to what they've presented. Is there anything else that you would like to see from them in their revised plan? Thank you.
Hi, good evening, Rick Freiberg from TEC again. So I think I understand, you know, where we're probably headed with the next set of preliminary plans. Again, I think trying to capture more of an overview, view of the project so that we can understand how the snow storage areas relate to the buildings and to the wetlands and to the paved areas and make sure all that stuff schematically makes sense for now. I think with regards to like dimensioning, you know, we're talking a little bit about how wide are the parking spaces and sidewalks and drive aisles. I don't think that every, you know, I don't think it needs to be noted in every location. Maybe it's just addressed through notes, you know, like, unless otherwise noted, drive aisles are 24 feet, parking spaces are 9 by 18, sidewalks are a minimum of whatever it's gonna be, 6 feet, 8 feet, whatever the minimum's gonna be, so that we can look at those notes and know that from a minimum standard, they're gonna meet ADA requirements, what the town's expectations are for safe passage of vehicles, for drive aisles, et cetera. So I think rather than cluttering up the plans, which I think was a concern, I think those could be addressed through notes, and it might make the plan production a little bit easier. And also maybe the plan's a little easier to read because there'll be less text covering everything else that's on them. I do, and I guess this is more of a request and not a requirement, I guess, for the dead-end parking. Mind if I borrow your exhibits? Is that okay? Yeah. So, kind of tilt a little bit so you can see as well. So what I was imagining for the dead-end parking was not necessarily what you might, which is a much larger hammerhead area, but rather, I mean, if you're gonna remove these 2 parking stalls, right here and here, at the bottom, in our mind, you know, why not make that paved and stripe those areas? And so what you wind up with is a striped area that's the width of a parking stall, but the full width, because we're thinking kind of practically about it, where the likelihood of a fire truck needing to turn around in there very often is, it's not gonna happen. But the pizza delivery guy, the Uber driver, et cetera, the people who are dropping somebody off at the development, if the parking's full, at least they'll be able to pull forward into a striped area, back out, and exit back out. So I don't think it's a, I think it's easily solved, not a requirement, just an idea, yeah.
No, I agree. We'll incorporate that.
And without losing any additional parking spaces.
Yeah, you don't want people just backing out all the way from the end, trying to back out. to
Yeah, I'm
the
picturing the
main road.
pizza delivery, right? You
Yeah.
know, something that happens every day, a more common occurrence than, say, the fire truck. So just a thought as you move forward with the next plan. And then, yeah, we'll absorb the response to the traffic comments. I think the stuff we'll be looking at most closely with the traffic, again, is that safety issues around the main street there, and related to the crossing for where the bus stop is planned. But, so we'll prepare a response letter in advance of your next meeting for those.
That would be great. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
I'd appreciate that.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Anything else you need from them, or you think you're all set? You think that's it?
Yeah, I think we're good.
All right, great. Thank you. So do you want to deal with the traffic comments, or do you want to absorb them first?
Let's absorb them first.
Because I haven't even read them yet, so I'd like to maybe put that on the schedule for the next meeting. Are you guys all right with that?
Yep.
All right. Thank you. Hopefully, we will be too. Anything else on this end?
No, just, when was the next meeting? Was it
It's,
the 20th? So I'm
20th
not
of November,
available
I
on the
think.
20th. I have
Yes.
parent-teacher conferences. But I do have John Witten from our office or Barbara Carboni from our office that will be here.
oh, okay.
Okay.
All right, so yeah, that's the 20th.
Yeah.
At 7:30. Schedule.
Because it's an off, that's why.
Yeah,
And then the next one would be, I think I have it, December 3rd. December 3rd or December 4th? 4th.
Sorry, I was planning to.
Okay. I'm pretty sure I put it in.
It's the 4th.
Okay, yeah. And I did put that one in.
so,
And I'll fill John in on everything.
And what about, Paul?
Yes, and Rebecca and I will update Paul also, we said we would, so.
Okay. All right, thank you.
let him know.
So I think, do we have anything else?
Any other questions for them
Questions, civil?
No?
in regards to
No,
these?
I think we're okay. We're gonna talk about all the school bus stuff
Next time,
memo.
yeah.
When they review the
No sense of hitting it now.
sightlines and the.
No, so, anything else? So can we wrap up civil for now? Okay,
Do we wanna, should probably have, see if anybody wants to talk. We
probably.
got a little time, so.
Yeah, no, that's
Any
fine.
comments or anything?
Yeah, no, I just meant us.
Yeah,
Do we
yeah,
have any other
yeah, that's what I
questions?
was-
Or
Do we have,
I think
I
I'm
don't
good
think
for
anything
now
else.
until I read through all the rest of the stuff that was
Mhm.
provided.
all right, you'd like to open it up to any public comments that they, any other public comments that would like to address any of the civil issues or, especially traffic and other areas we've covered? Anybody has anything at all they wanna say? You're more than welcome. No, okay then,
Quiet group.
I think that makes it easy.
Traffic and civil are usually very popular. Nobody wants to talk about it.
We will have our civil guy here. The civil guy here will also bring back Heather. I've pinged her, at least our traffic person. There's going to be a question about sidelines in there, because she did the drawing. We will make sure she's available as well. And then from there, we can figure out what's next, because there's no question there'll be what's next. Does that seem?
Well, I think we also discussed that the water department will be here.
Yes.
At the next meeting.
Give us a full agenda.
Yeah. And any other utility,
Yeah, I think that's part of the water sewer.
yeah, right, that's what I was thinking, so,
And I think at that point, we are open, realizing that that may help to frame up what we may want to sequence for the next 1, 2, or 3 meetings from that. So if you're open to it, we certainly are of allowing next week to see where we then go from there to what is the
yeah, I
pleasure of
think
the
we'll
board.
find a lot out, and whether we need to continue a conversation, or whether we can wrap it up at the next meeting or not. So I think that'll depend on how quickly TEC gets the information, how fast we can process behind the scenes, and then dictate from there. That would be my,
Is it now okay that the peer review consultant has presented that if they, 2 of them have a question, they can go back and forth between meetings so that they can come back in? And is there any problem with that as long as Rebecca is copied on anything that they should have for a transmittal? It's only not to poison anything, it's only to make sure that the question's answered.
Amy, is that all right?
Yeah, as long as Rebecca's involved.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's what I thought, but I just,
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to find a way to make sure that we don't come here and be unproductive, so I was just trying to help that. So you guys are like responsible children now and, behave. So,
play
okay,
well, play nice.
there you go.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So, I would like to make a motion to continue this public hearing, right? What do I gotta do? So continue the public hearing until Wednesday, November
20th?
20th at 7:30?
Second.
Continue this application?
Second.
In favor?
Aye. All right. So we have lots of homework.
You'd think the bus company would look at it, so they wouldn't have to keep crossing the street there.
Thank you all for coming.
You would think, well, it's just, it's more of a request than anything else, I
That's what
think.
I'm saying.
I don't really,
Logistics is getting them around.
I mean, I think crossing the street on drop-off is less of an issue than pickup, because pickup, everybody's gonna wanna be, well, drop-off.
And because it's not a public street, right, it's a private street, what's the deal? That's why the bus can't go up there? Is that the deal?
They can kind of,
I mean, it sounds absurd to be blocking Salem Street.
I'll pray for me on the 20th on the parent-teacher conference.
yeah, I don't know what,
Oh, boy.
Oh, yeah.
a lot of it will
Yeah.
depend upon how many
Kind
kids
of waiver
and
or
what.
My
something.
son's 25, been there.
Yeah.
I don't think, I don't know if it's a
I read it.
I think
private street issue. I mean, I know there's lots of private
Well, that's good.
It seems to
units
me
that they pull into,
Yeah.
so as much as,
I mean, for a safety
access and
factor,
getting-
you think it would pull the
it's-
heck off and turn around and come back out.
Yeah, it's
We'll see.
Well, good luck.
Yeah.
long
Have a
drive
nice
to turn
Thanksgiving.
around, so it just
We'll see
depends
you
on what
That's
the-
right.
In December, yeah.
We'll see you in December.
We got a big agenda for the next one.
Anybody want this? This to Rebecca?
Yeah, we can hold on to it till,
We should save this for Chris, right?
yeah. Rebecca, we probably hold on to it.
Will you be able to send, I
Rebecca,
think
save it for Chris?
Oh,
to Paul.
yeah.
No, I don't, it's just we gotta, we should.
Could I motion for a quick 2-minute recess? I'm gonna motion for a quick 2-minute recess.
Second it.
All those in favor?
All in favor?
Thank you.
You don't need me, right, for minutes?
Probably not, not unless you have any comments on your own comments, so.
No, that's okay. Oh, wait,
Thank you.
I thought I put, I think this is hers.
That's for Chris, I
Yeah.
think. We were
Oh,
gonna
okay,
save
good.
Oh,
that
yeah.
for Chris.
I know
That's
I
it.
put mine in my file. Okay,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's extra. It's for Chris. Okay. All right, guys, I will see you in December.
Thank
So
you.
we will be here on the 20th.
Thank you.
All right, yeah, you too. Thank you.
Thank you. No, we need it. I think, the green light.
Yeah, the green light, there you go.
I think it was,
At this point, we're just always on air, because nobody actually pushes the button anymore.
I know. I have two red lights. Do you trust it? No. Correct me if I'm wrong, we haven't decided anything yet on any section of these plans, correct? Everything is in flux right now.
Right.
Yeah.
I just want to be sure.
I'll make a motion to reopen the hearing at 8:55.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. All right, so we got minutes, we got town report, and bills.
We have only fun stuff left. I can't believe you're gonna stay for that.
Well, it's your bill, so.
Yeah, nothing more exciting. So. What do you wanna do first? What are we doing first?
Get the minutes out of the way.
Oh, he's here for the invoice. That's what he's here for.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
No, that's okay.
Gonna make sure we approve the invoice before he comes back next week.
Hey, that's
Or
it, I
2
don't
weeks.
blame him. No ticky, no shirty.
Okay.
I suppose I can't say that either, can I?
It's all right, your mic's off.
Okay.
Have any comments on the minutes?
I thought we were doing the invoice first.
I said the minutes, but we can
Oh.
do the invoice first.
I thought you might wanna go home. That's what I was thinking, actually.
Yeah.
Come on
Could we do the invoice first,
We can do
please?
the invoice first.
Okay. Sorry,
We have a
a little disorganized over here.
invoice from TEC,
Invoice number 15846 in the amount of $4,040 for technical civil review and meetings. I'll make a motion to approve invoice number 15846 from TEC.
I'll second it. All those?
Aye.
And then, minutes?
Sure. I actually did read them already. I didn't have any issues.
Minutes?
All look good to me. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from Wednesday, October 2nd.
All those in favor? Aye.
Thank you, Rebecca, they look beautiful.
And
So,
then-
this leaves the last thing, right, the town report?
Yes.
And Gergenbeck?
Oh, yeah, we do have Gerger.
Oh, I forgot about him.
They wanted to vote on that after. That was what they had mentioned in their presentation.
Yeah, I don't think,
They want it, excuse me?
They
I'm
wanted
missing.
to discuss the habitat review after they have Oxbow prepare a letter in terms of what they did for the permitting with natural heritage and all of the measures they had put in place
Before.
prior to us moving forward with the habitat review.
Prior to us deciding on having a
They wanna
habitat review
bypass.
or prior to?
I don't know
we
with
can-
certainty whether or not they're saying that they would not like to proceed with a habitat review,
Right.
or whether or not they would just like to wait.
Didn't they mention in one of the letters here that they wanted to bypass everything? Including, wetlands?
I know in the beginning there was a little bit of pushback in terms of a review of habitat
was
and
in
the
that letter.
jurisdiction of the zoning board of appeals, but I'm
Yeah.
not too certain as to what their arguments are and whether or not there's any legal backing behind them.
Well, we can,
Yeah,
Talk
their
about
arguments
that.
in that letter, answering the rebuttal to you.
Yeah.
They wanna bypass all the zoning.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think your position could be, if you're interested in it, is that you consider wildlife to be a conservation issue, and this is the board that's receiving comments from town staff on all issues, including conservation. Might be a way to talk about it. Even though technically, you're not issuing, say, like an endangered species type permit or whatever. but
Right.
That does come up at conservation commission hearings, and that's a topic that's commonly discussed at town staff level.
so basically what you're saying is defer it to town, I'm sorry, to the Conservation Commission, have them come give us a report, kind of like what we would do, let's say, with the water commissioner or whatever.
That's a great way to handle it.
no, they hired Gergenbeck, didn't they?
They,
Or they
well, when
used
Mike
them?
came in, he said that that's who he was
Yeah.
would have hired had it come to
Yeah,
conservation.
right.
So that's why we were interested in him.
Yeah.
Because we asked conservation and said, because we had different peer review proposals. And so we were sort of asking for his opinion, like who do you use, who do you trust, like, and he suggested this gentleman for the turtle review, because we're talking about Mark, right? He's the turtle, the turtle habitat expert. So that's who they recommended, so that's how we got.
Yeah, and so, the zoning board's role, because it sounds like that was one of the questions in the letter, like why is that within the zoning board's purview? Is that you are the collector of comments from all departments and boards through this board review process. You could have conservation-related comments that would be presented then in front of this board.
So would they go to conservation, an official conservation hearing, or would it just be reviewed by the commission?
Reviewed by the commission, and they could offer either a letter outlining, or they could attend a meeting to present their ideas on the topic to you.
So
Okay.
basically, we can defer to Concom?
And just have them come back with their
And then
expert
they'll use
opinion.
Gergenbeck or whoever they want,
That's right,
and it's a way to
that's right.
get it
Because-
done.
Because you guys are, as the board, governing this, you guys have the ability to reach out to the different boards and ask for their input. They may want to bring on a consultant, a peer review consultant, third party, as part of their review of it, and present their findings, so that you're aware of what
Yep.
they're looking at.
I'd like actually to do the same thing with planning, because this is more,
Yeah.
what they're looking at every day. To get their opinions, because they're the ones who are usually involved in, subdivisions and stuff like that.
Yes.
So, that's a great idea. Thank you very much for, I think that's very helpful.
Well, hang around.
And your statements on the fire department and stuff.
Did you happen to watch the meeting that we had with the fire department?
I have not.
Okay, that was because one of our first meetings was police and fire. And so, was he the captain or the assistant chief? I
He
forget
was
exactly.
captain
It was
at the
acting
time.
Chief York,
Or acting
Ah.
chief.
and they
Okay.
had no chief. They've since, I believe, they've since hired a chief.
He starts on December 2nd.
Okay, so,
We can probably,
So, the reason why I mention it is because it probably is out on YouTube, and you can maybe hear directly from the fire department exactly what their concerns were. Because I think some of the things in your letter were sort of addressed then, so, just a tip.
Yeah.
I want to say it was September meeting?
And the buildings all look like they're planned to be sprinkled, right?
Yes.
It's not fire
yeah,
Yeah.
but they're
Yeah.
not accessible on four sides.
That's right.
And that is, the apartments, it's not like they run front to back.
That's right.
You've got one whole half of that building that's not accessible.
Right, and so the fire department went into sort of detail as to what their concerns are. They have other concerns besides that, so it might behoove you to just watch so at least you get sort of firsthand.
Yeah. And I think the fire department could request like an NFPA report to show how they're complying with like, the national fire codes.
Yeah, and I think I believe they said we'd be more than happy to provide that, no problem. Because I remember having, but they did raise a handful of concerns, so it might be nice to just hear it straight from them as opposed to us telling you what they said, so.
And they also didn't know that the front of the building, has the garage that you drive under. So you're looking at 5 stories,
That's really right.
not counting the peaked roof.
That's right.
And their ladder can go 70 feet. So, I mean, there's some issues there.
Yeah. So, just, I believe that was September, so maybe you might want to review that, yeah. Okay. Anything else besides the town report?
No,
we
I don't
left?
think so.
Rebecca, do you want to maybe chat a little bit about what this is and where it came from and,
So this is so I put together a draft for the annual report. We got an email from the town finance director stating that, boards and commissions and departments need to put together, information detailing some of the activities and highlighting some of the activities of the fiscal year 19, which would have been included in the annual report that's released, and I believe also contains information pertaining to the town meeting, that Cory took back in April. So I took the liberty again of taking information that I was aware of and putting together the report drafted for you. The only question I was gonna ask the board is that there's one, unknown for me, is that, there's an application that you guys reviewed for Gardner Street. And the so the actual decision states it was a special permit, but I wasn't sure if it was a special permit or a variance or a finding.
Is that the 2 houses into one?
I don't necessarily, I didn't get a chance to
Gardner
look into it
Street.
too much, so I just kinda highlighted it as one to ask the board before I kinda dug into it and didn't know
When they had their house that
if
had
it
no
was a special
frontage.
permit, or is it a finding, or,
I don't recall the specifics of it, but I probably have notes on it and everything. I think,
cause I think it's either a finding or a variance. I don't necessarily think it's a special permit based upon the limited one I read, but even though but it was listed in the decision as a special permit, so I just wanted to make sure I wasn't counting it twice for a special permit and a finding.
I see. Well, I'll have to look at my notes on it, because it was a while ago.
Okay, that was the only one, otherwise I went through based on the applications, the numbers, and counted for what we got for the 5, minus maybe 1 of that particular fiscal year.
And I used to carry the whole years with me, but this one's so big, it's all I can carry, it's all I can fit in my bag, is this one. So, but I'll look, I know I have notes on everything.
I don't remember if it was a finding or whatever, but
I-
I remember
I just remember it was 2
it
lots,
was
funny,
2 houses
yeah.
and no street frontage. One had no street frontage or something.
something like that, yeah.
We let them combine them to make one, because they couldn't get it financed or something. It
Right.
was some kind of messed up thing, the bank wouldn't.
I don't remember the specifics, but
Well, we can just double check, but that was my only thing, otherwise I just detailed what you had already listed out really kind of in your rules and regulations about what your duties are as the zoning board of appeals, kind of went into the members of the board, the resignation of the former clerk, how many members we had at the end of the year, although that has changed now, but just to highlight what those were, and then also looked into some of the initiatives that we're taking in. And one of those initiatives is to look at the zoning bylaw in collaboration with the planning department, and we have a platform called Code 360, which will codify the bylaw and also put it in an online format that you can search, and will track amendments moving forward, and will allow staff to make notes and comments and an internal book where we can kind of confer as to whether or not, this might work, or, oh, this language doesn't work, or this conflicts with this, so that we can gradually make those changes, so it's not as a huge of an undertaking once we do find an indiscrepancy or something that needs to be changed, because it does need to go through public hearing with the planning board, and then also the town meeting for the formal vote.
the only note I had about this, and I thought about it after, because we talked about the zoning board changes, and I believe in fiscal year 2019, that's when Casey resigned as the chair.
Oh, okay, I don't know when that,
Yeah, I'm trying to, Jason, when did you become the chair? Do you remember?
I don't know, when did you become the co-chair?
I don't know. It was about a year ago,
so
when
it'd be
Casey
like
left.
around like this time, so like the October
Yeah,
timeframe,
so, she might have left in the summer. That's what, I feel like
So
it
it
was
would be
this.
August, August would be the only
Did,
date for
'cause she
FY
called me about
19.
joining,
Ah,
and I didn't know she was leaving.
yeah, that's right.
So
I couldn't find it.
So that would have been into the fiscal year 2019,
The
so,
beginning of the summer,
right.
yes.
And so she resigned, she moved out of town, and so Jason stepped up to be the chair. And then John joined around the same time, and then Jennifer came along after,
So 2018,
late. Yeah, like later into, so that would be fiscal year 2019, correct?
June, yes.
Yeah, that's why, so I think it happened in that time frame, but I thought about that after. I wanted to- I'm sure it's in the minutes.
Okay, I can go back and check for sure.
Yeah,
I just looked at the applications, to be honest with you.
I feel like it was late summer, early fall. So I'll make a motion to approve the town report for fiscal year 2019 with the change of adding the fact that Casey stepped down and Jason stepped up. So, all those? Anybody else?
Second.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. That's it. All she wrote. I'll make a motion to adjourn at 9:11.
Second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm Groovy.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for hanging around. That was great.